Thanks for coming to the first ever Cryptoeconomicon. I hope that we can make this like a recurring tradition. I think it'll be a success because the schedule is really good. So let's get on with it. So what is cryptoeconomics in the first place? I mean, we named the conference after it, but it's actually really hard to say in a sentence at first shot what cryptoeconomics is. Some people don't even think it is a thing at all. So we can start with the economics part and try to see how cryptoeconomics might be different than ordinary economics. So economics normally is like a social science that studies the way goods and services are produced, distributed, and consumed. Okay, and that's Wikipedia. You can't argue with that. So kind of altering that definition, we might say that cryptoeconomics is basically studying the way that protocols distribute services and goods for the consumption of services in a decentralized digital economy. So basically, cryptoeconomics might also be considered, kind of taking more of the crypto side, a practical science of the design and characterization of these protocols. So that's still kind of from the economic side. But economics, as we kind of know, is different in theory than in practice. In theory, people have like nice, simple models that are very tractable. In practice, experimental results are hard to model and hard to get a good evidence from. So basically, there's a gulf between theory and practice in economics, and also in cryptoeconomics, where the state of software development defaults also make things weird and different from in theory than in practice. So basically, but cryptoeconomics and ordinary economics are weird for different reasons. Ordinary economics is weird because people are basically like not Homo economicus, and they're mammals with culture. Software is weird because of the nature of development, bugs, defaults, and that stuff's all really weird. But there's still hope for rational software. We're never going to have rational people in our lifetime, probably, at least not these type of like deductive machines that look at all the outcomes that every player can have and consider what deviations they might make given their strategies. But for software, that might still be possible. So maybe these simplistic economic models that are so nice theoretically will still be useful in software. So maybe it is just a subfield of economics. So I'm just going to go quickly through some ways that cryptoeconomics is a bit different, or like the crypto economy is different than the normal economy. So it's like flat, digital, global. Reputation is less important, and there's low barriers of entry, because basically we're going to use like economic incentive alone, in pure cryptoeconomics, rather than trust and reputation in order to ensure the provision of services. So it's like coercion free. You can't like impose a cost on someone because they're just somewhere on the internet. You can't punch someone through the internet. You need to have them like put a security deposit or have some reputation at stake that is publicly used that you could slash, or there's like, they have to put themselves at risk in order for someone to impose a cost on them. And we have this idea of like, market mechanisms in economics. Digital mechanisms are much cheaper to produce. They're kind of self-enforcing because they are the code that runs the thing. So it's different. The crypto economy has some different characteristics than the normal economy. So even if cryptoeconomics is just a subset of economics, it's like an interesting subset that has its unique properties. So maybe it still deserves respect as like a subset of economics. So let's think about like what it means to have security in a crypto economy. Basically, you're gonna have like mechanisms that have some Nash equilibrium that people would have to spend some budget in order to disrupt. And basically we need to ask how difficult it is to change the Nash equilibrium of some mechanism. And you can measure that in different ways, and classically what we want to do is measure it in dollars because, using kind of economic logic. And because that's just much easier to quantify. So basically we have this really cool thing called consensus mechanism, which we're going to have a couple of panels on, where basically you have a mechanism in the consensus whose Nash equilibrium is securing the consensus. It's like that's like the one invention that Bitcoin really pioneered, to have something that assumes consensus that secures consensus. It's like this recursive solution that is like self-bootstrapping, and like it's really nice. So basically, but mechanisms in these things are really programs, right? And if the program has a Nash equilibrium and we can expect the program to run in a Nash equilibrium way, then that lets us have assurances about the way a program can run. And that is a cryptographic kind of concept, right? We want to be able to prove that a program ran in a certain way, or in this case, we want to be able to ensure that a program will run in a certain way into the future. And that's a kind of assurance that cryptography alone can't provide, but it is kind of a cryptographic assurance that some program will run in some way in the future. And because we can do this for arbitrary programs, that is really like a general purpose cryptographic tool that lets you do something that wasn't possible before. So maybe cryptoeconomics is economics for cryptography rather than cryptography and digital stuff for economists. So basically, like I'm saying, and I'll say again, we can guarantee the program will run in a particular way in the future by setting up the Nash equilibrium for it to run in that way. Basically, incentives are forward-facing. Cryptography is always like produces proofs based on information that already exists. So it gives us a way to move forward in time with authentication, which wasn't possible before the economics part was added to the cryptography. So this is looking at cryptoeconomics as economics for cryptographers rather than cryptography for economists. And kind of a question is, can we do anything for any program in terms of guaranteeing certain behavior based on future inputs? And these are questions that we're just starting to ask, and we have no idea what the limits are going to be exactly. So thinking about cryptography, usually cryptography is used to reach some information security goals. One of them is classically, making sure that information that is supposed to be delivered to people is actually gets there. That information hasn't been tampered with, that it's arriving at the right location and from the right source. So that's like the authenticity thing, and then there's the confidentiality goal, which is like trying to keep information private from people who aren't supposed to see it. So now we still have all the cryptographic tools there, and we have this additional tool which allows us to assure the way that programs will behave into the future. And the question is, how does this help us? What does it let us do? So basically, if we can specify the program, it'll process these inputs that are unknown to us, and if we can guarantee the authenticity of the result based on the security of the cryptoeconomic protocol that underlies the mechanisms. And we can hopefully begin to quantify the securities in a way that's rigorous and in a kind of disciplined way. So basically, kind of wrapping up, thinking of cryptoeconomics as like a subset of economics makes cryptoeconomics kind of special because it's digital, programmable, it's maybe easier to experiment. It's like a special field of economics with like special rules and different types of scarcity in different areas. But we can also think about cryptoeconomics as being economics for cryptography, in which case we get this like really strong guarantee, which wasn't possible before, which lets us handle some information security goals. And that's basically another really powerful way to look, and I think a more powerful way to look at cryptoeconomics. But different people will disagree. Some people will still treat cryptoeconomics as economics, as cryptography for economists, but I think more and more that it's economics for cryptography. And that concludes my talk.
So you're actually under, at least compared to when you started. So 2 or 3 questions. We'll switch over. If there are.
On an earlier slide, you talked about what was this? Reputation and identity. Less focus on reputation and identity. I didn't quite catch why there would be less focus on reputation and identity.
Sure. So the idea here is that in like pure cryptoeconomics, what you'd want to do is you would outsource a service or some program to be run by economic actors who have basically skin in the game in the form of like security deposits or money to win if they act in a certain way. Like Bitcoin itself it doesn't care, what the identity of the miner is. Really, it just cares if a valid block is produced. So a cryptoeconomic protocol, I would say, provides assurances based on economic incentives to the participants. Now, reputation is definitely like important for that, but it's kind of like a more mature system that I think is so basically the main drawback of using trust and reputation is that it's much harder to quantify exactly the assurance that you get from the mechanism. If you have a certain amount of security deposits that will be lost if the program misbehaves, then you can quantify that. You can say this is how much money someone would have to bribe the participants in order to create my program, make my program run in a different way. With trust, it's really much harder to quantify the probability of compromise. But that stuff would still fit in, but I wouldn't regard it as like pure cryptoeconomics. It might just be a semantics thing.
Different subject. You mentioned earlier measuring security or economic security in dollar terms. Did you mean US dollars, or do you mean any monetary value, or including a cryptocurrency? Or?
So I mean, every crypto system, you should be able to kind of measure to some degree of security in terms of its own internal asset, but it's only really meaningful to like us in the world if it's priced in the currency that people buy and sell the most stuff for, because that's what the attacker is most likely to have and be deploying in order to conduct an attack. Sure. Okay, well, sure.
I think reputation has the potential to be as important or more important than tokens of value in decentralized systems. And I know Ethereum and related projects are going to be building out a lot of stuff around reputation. Do you feel like it's reasonable and possible to build an economic infrastructure that's totally trust-free, that has no notion of reputation?
Yeah, I mean, as long as
Based on stake?
as long as the amount of value being cleared is less than the amount of assets backing it for the clearing, basically.
Costs, a higher transportation costs if you don't rely on trust. So if you bring in trust, then you can both leverage more value and you lower the cost to just kind of a little bit extra risk.
So reputation is kind of nice in the sense that it makes an attacker do an additional thing in order to conduct an attack, which is to conduct this long process of building a reputation. So it raises the bar. But it's hard to quantify the value of that reputation unless it's traded, and if it's traded, then it fits back into this economics camp.